Risotto is something I love to eat at restaurants, but have no idea how to make. I don't even know where to begin.
Well, you're not the first person that's asked that question, and I think there are tons of people out there that would love to make it, enjoy it, but don't really know how to approach it. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna go ahead and make a basic risotto recipe. And I thought it would be great is if you actually make it.
Okay.
Then you can see how easy it is and what all the key points are.
Great.
But then I think everyone out there can also feel that, it's not a big deal.
Best way to learn is to do it. So
let's
why
start.
don't we start?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the rice here. And the rice that we use to make risotto is arborio. And this is something that you're going to typically find in gourmet shops. So our Artfield store was definitely the one you're going to go to get this. But the grain is an Italian grain, and the reason why the grain is special is because it allows you to cook lots of liquid in there without getting mushy, but also as the starches come off, it gives you a nice creamy texture. So that's what we're gonna use in this dish here. So I'm gonna start by putting a little bit of olive oil into the pan here. And you want the pan to be hot, but not so hot that it's smoking. And then go ahead and pour the rice in. And then you wanna stir the rice around. I'm gonna turn the heat up just a little bit. And what we're trying to do here is essentially coat the grains of rice with the fat or the oil so that they separate. And what I like to do is I'm actually lightly toasting them. It's gonna give just a very subtle hint of toastiness. You don't want it to be like brown, but just lightly. So is it everything looks coated nicely?
Yes.
Okay, so now the next step in the process is to add shallots or onions, okay? So now I'm gonna go ahead and add them in for you. And what we're gonna do here is, again, we're just trying to sweat the onions. So when I say sweat, you don't want color. You just want translucent. You're cooking the onions, in this case, or shallots, and you'll know that they're done when they're sort of opaque when they're raw, right? And then when they've been sweat properly, they will look lightly clear. So you're gonna just keep going and keep moving it. In this case, you wanna keep moving it because if you let it sit, because I've got the heat up, you may burn it. So I want you to just keep moving it around and keep moving it around. And that's looking good. We're just gonna go just for a few more seconds to get those onions to get all that flavor out. And you can tell that the onions are done because it's not pungent, it smells sweet, right? So I think that looks pretty darn good. Keep stirring. Now I'm gonna add white wine, and the kind of white wine that I recommend that you use is try to find something that doesn't have oak in it, because oak can make things a little heavy. I want to have a cleaner, nice acidic execution, and so here I'm using a Sauv Blanc that also has not seen any oak in there. Okay. So I'm going to add about a 1/4 cup. We're going to deglaze in here. Go ahead and stir. You're doing good. Good. So now what's going to happen here is we're going to cook this risotto, and Cheryl's going to keep stirring it, and she wants to keep moving it because it's going to allow the liquid to reduce, and it's also going to start working that starch out, which is going to help us get that creamy risotto. Okay, does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, cool. So just keep going, and you see how it's absorbing?
Yes.
Now, in this first process, because we've added the wine, we're trying to cook out the acidity and cook out the wine, but we want to make sure that, we're doing this to add flavor, but we also want to make sure all that alcohol is cooking out.
Can smell the alcohol.
So now, what you're doing is you're cooking, and you see how it's absorbed everything, and it's starting to look dry, right?
Yes.
At this point, we start to add chicken stock.
Okay.
Now I have a pot here, and I've heated the chicken stock. It's hot. We want to start with hot stock so that the process is quicker, because if the stock was cold and then we add it in, you gotta wait for the stock to get hot. It takes longer. So when the process here is dry, you see how it's starting to kind of crackle because there's no moisture left. Then I start adding more liquid. So I'm gonna add stock now. And the process is you add a little bit of stock, you cook it, you let it absorb. It's gonna cream out. It's gonna dry out. Then we add more stock. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So as you see how it's bubbling, it came to bubble quick because it was hot. But do you see how creamy it's starting to look?
Yes, very creamy.
And that creaminess is what gives that texture. I mean, some people add cream at the end, but it's not really actually cream that gives you sort of this this texture. It's the starch that's coming out of the rice.
Wow. And it's okay that it's boiling like this?
Yep, it's fine.
Not too high?
You just got to keep stirring it though.
Okay.
Like you're doing. And you don't want to let it dry out, because if it dries out, then you run the risk of caramelizing or burning the risotto. So it should always be very creamy when you're working with it. It's going to reduce down, it's going to get tight, and then we add more stock.
Okay.
And you just keep doing that, and when we're closer to the rice being done, we'll taste it, and we want the rice to be tender, but we don't want it to be crunchy, and we don't want it to be mushy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Are you with me?
Yes, I
Okay,
think you
cool.
need to add more chicken stock.
Cool. And the important thing to make a great risotto is to make sure when you make it, you need to have a man-slave next to you to keep stock in the risotto.
I'll just keep stirring and you do the rest.
So what we're gonna do now is at this point, we're gonna just continue to be adding more stock, and she's gonna keep cooking it and stirring it and working it. And then when we're almost done, we'll come back and we'll go ahead and finish with cheese, butter, lemon, and some fun things. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes.
But the key, and the reason why that this may seem difficult, or it's the kind of dish that you don't do all the time, it does require you to be actively there the whole time working
Stirring,
the dish.
yes.
Right. So we're gonna
It's
keep
good
cooking.
exercise.
We'll be back, and then we'll finish it off.
I'll keep stirring. It really expanded.
Yeah, so what you're gonna do now is we're done. The texture of the rice is done. It's starting to look very creamy, and then we're gonna now finish the risotto. Okay. Now I already added some salt and pepper. I'm gonna just add a little bit more because I think it needs a little bit for seasoning. And here's the part now. I need you to keep stirring this. I'm gonna start adding butter, cheese, and we're gonna add lemon juice for acid. Okay. So I'm gonna start with the butter, and this is what's gonna bring it all together and make it rich. Okay. So I'm gonna put a few pieces in there. And you want to keep moving it because you don't want the butter to just melt. You want to sort of emulsify it into the whole mix here.
Are you planning to use all that butter?
No. Well, I could if you want.
No.
Okay. Then I'm going to add some lemon juice because with the creaminess that you just got the butter in there, we want to put some corners on this finish. We want to give it some edge. So I put a few drops of lemon juice in there. And then what's going to help bind the risotto together is one of my favorite things is we have some Reggiano Parmesan that I'm going to grate into the risotto here. And you just stir that in. You feel it tightening up. You feel it getting sort of a little stiff.
Yes.
And that's going to give it flavor, umami. It's going to give it a meatiness that's going to be beautiful. And now
Oh, I can smell it.
I want to put a little bit of parsley in here to finish this up. And the thing
getting
about
really
risotto,
creamy.
depending what you do with it, sometimes you want it to be tighter, sometimes you want it to be looser. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, you know what? I want it just a little bit looser. So I'm going to put a little more
Really?
stock, yeah.
Okay. All right. I think I definitely have the harder job.
I'll agree with you on this one. Okay, so now the sky's the limit on how you want to finish this, right? So we're going to put some peas in here. We're going to finish with peas.
So you could put mushrooms or bacon.
You could put bacon. If you do mushrooms and bacon, you're going to put the mushrooms and bacon at the beginning so that they can cook down, and then you finish the process throughout.
Oh, okay.
Put some ham in here. You can put asparagus. I do that sometimes.
Ooh.
Sometimes I put lots of different kinds of herbs in there. So, I mean, sky's the limit. I'm going to taste them. I'm going to make sure. I always taste a little bit with a clean spoon, of course, just to make sure it's done before you take it out. And it's actually pretty good. Put a little more cheese in there.
Was it having?
I'm sorry, it's not pretty good. It's very good. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
Did you put enough salt?
Yeah, I think salt's good. And see how it's tightening up?
Yeah.
Do you like it this consistency?
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna go like that for you. You can stop.
So it's just personal preference then. How dry or how wet you want
Personal preference. I tend to serve it in a restaurant. I would serve it a little bit looser. Or if I was gonna serve it at this consistency that you're looking for, Cheryl, I would also have a sauce that I would be finishing it with. So I would put some of the risotto in the plate, and then I would mirror a little saucer on the outside, which would be really nice too. You could do that. So here's the risotto. I'm gonna put a little bit more cheese. What is that stuff?
Parsley.
Parsley on the top. We'll put a little bit more ham for garnish. And then I always finish with a little more fresh grated Parmesan on top.
Wow.
And then, or when you serve it to your guests,
Oh, you can do it
give them a little fresh.
when after you serve it to them.
Exactly. So you can have a little show for them. But this is it. It's simple. You know, what'd be good too. Some truffle oil would be nice on top of here. I think.
Wow.
But I'm gonna hold. You want to taste
Yeah.
your risotto?
It's perfect.
It's because of you. You made perfect risotto. And do you think you could do
can't
this by
even,
yourself?
You can't even taste the alcohol.
Because we cooked it all out. Yeah.
Oh.
And it just the butter and the cream and the creaminess is all there, and so it kind of like that the wine gives it flavor, but just some edges on it.
Thank you.
I'll hold for you. Well, it appears that Cheryl likes her own cooking because she can't stop. For this recipe and more, visit us at foodland.com.